We're seeing some really stunning changes to property values in our municipality. As an example, last week we saw a weatherboard 3-bedroom house in Oak Park on a large block of land sell for $1.1 million. My grandmother lived for 53 years in Oak Park, and when she sold her property next door to that property 10 years ago, it went for $350,000. There's something staggering going on.
We manage quite a few in this building with this above this place here. And to look at something like that, 2-bedroom apartment, for example, will sell mid 500s to 600, depending on size. So that's just the average size, but they range from there and they can go up to 700,000 and 800,000, depending if there's a second bathroom, second car spaces, and so forth. Look, it's booming and it's going to continue to boom. It's in comparison to other, Melbourne's the most livable city, no doubt. The amount of people, the influx of people that are not only investors that are coming here to live, come here and visit for a weekend and they buy 1 or 2 properties.
I think Melbourne is a long way from being a livable city for all, and that question really comes down to for who. And if we're talking about ethics and spatial equity of resources, as we're talking about, access to the city, access to employment, commute times, cost of transport, all these sorts of things are really fundamental to thinking about an ethical city. I really think the question comes down to who is the livability for?
Mayor, councillors, officers, I'm actually going to speak on behalf of the Nightingale residents here today. I guess you could call me a young professional, and I guess you would say I'm successful, quite successful. I have my own studio in South Bank in Melbourne, and we make video games, but still at the age of 29, the housing market is completely inaccessible to me. Until I moved into the Commons, just out of luck, met Jeremy and started talking about these things and heard about Nightingale. This was the only opportunity that I have to enter the housing market as a first home buyer. And that is the same for a lot of the people who are here today. If I could just have the Nightingale residents raise their hands or stand up, please, so we know who you are. So these are the people that, depending on the decision tonight and perhaps a pursuing decision at VCAT, it's not like we will just move on and get another house. This decision can change the course of our lives, meaning that we actually may not get a house for potentially another 5, 10 years. Unfortunately, the setbacks, if adopted, as you saw, will make my apartment $30,000 more expensive. And it's just completely untenable to me and just puts me in the same boat as all of my other friends and the other 800 people who are on this waiting list looking for this opportunity.
When I was with Moreland Energy Foundation, I provided a bit of advice to Jeremy from Breeze, who was kind of creating this project, and ended up writing the sustainability management plan for the building quite late in the construction process. Realised that we probably weren't going to have an opportunity to live in a community like this again. It seemed like a bit of a once in a lifetime opportunity, and so we managed to scrounge together a deposit and bought an apartment here, and it also, I guess, gave us the opportunity to see what the reality of living in a building like this was. So these are the development model that steps away from a typical totally profit-driven development model and really tries to embrace a genuine triple bottom line approach. Ultimately, the occupant is really important, that the building's impact on the environment should be minimised, and that the long-term cost and the life cycle cost of running or living in this home should be as low as possible. And ultimately, it should facilitate strong social connections. You'll see that there's no car parking because we're right next to a train station, and there's a car share car out the front. And so that both saves people money and is a benefit to their health as well, but is also a really significant environmental benefit through reducing car usage. We've got as much renewable energy on the building as we can, just sort of physically, to provide as much of the building's requirements from locally sourced renewable energy as possible.
Councillor Hopper?
Thank you. I'd like to move the motion if there's no further questions. Look, this is an extraordinary application, and we can see from the success that the Commons has enjoyed, multi-award winning, what an extraordinary impact it's had on the Brunswick community and on the scale and type of architecture that we have here in Brunswick.
In terms of Nightingale, it had just been such a lengthy and drawn-out process and a really stressful process. You know, they'd put the original application in to Planning Committee at the time that I was Mayor. That went to VCAT because of one objector who objected to the fact that there were no car parks, and VCAT rejected the development on the basis that there were no car parks. And what's the purpose of that? Why spend the extra money on building a car park in a development if people who are buying into that development don't want it and aren't going to use it? And Nightingale and Breathe Architects have identified that need in our community, and VCAT hasn't kept up with those changes in what our community wants, and the transformational changes in design that we're seeing from leading architects.
I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously.